Posada, slow roller right side. Beckett picks it up, tags Posada, and the Florida Marlins are world champions.
No question about it. I am ready to get hurt again.
Welcome to another episode of Battered Marlins Fans Podcast. This is episode number 4. I am one of your hosts, Daniel Granada, alongside, we got 3 usual Battered fans, and we have one very special Battered fan with us, Peter Pratt. So I am going to go around the horn here and introduce everybody. First, how are you doing, Mr. Peter Pratt?
I'm good. This podcast is perfectly named, I would say, for right now, right in this moment of time, where the Marlins are getting battered in Atlanta for sure. And this is the only UK one of the week. And it's been then dragged on with this rain. And there's pain. There's more pain for the Marlins. So this should be a fun episode. I'm really looking forward to it, guys. Thanks for having me on. I saw this pop up like a couple of weeks back on Twitter, retweeting the life out of it. Like, it's great to have just more Marlins podcasts out there. Absolutely, it's what I enjoy listening to as well. So, great to be on with you guys, and this should be a fun one.
Well, we appreciate having you on and you coming on. I know that right now it's almost 10 o'clock at night. We're currently going through this beating that the Braves are giving us, so we're going to take our minds off of that for a second before we get into the Marlins. But let's keep going around the horn. Callie, how are you, sir? Out of there in Pro Player Stadium?
That's right, Pro Player. I'm in my daughter's room today because I got kicked out of my own office. Kind of wish the rain delay never ended because we're getting absolutely assaulted in Atlanta right now. Errors, just real ugly game. Almost another error just now. That's great in the bottom of the 5th by Segura. But yeah, really excited to get on. Really fun series against Cleveland, followed up by this absolute disaster class in Atlanta. So let's jump into it.
And before we go on to our next battered fan, I need to point out that's quite a beautiful hat that you have there, Callie.
That's right. It's a pixelated Ken Griffey Jr. hat brought to you by Baseballism. I know we don't have paid sponsorships yet, but Baseballism, we know you listen. So love the hat. Thank you. Griffey's my all-time favorite. He's part of the reason why I fell in love with baseball growing up. So yeah.
Well, I don't know. I can't say everybody's age right now, but if you're more or less in the age of somewhere in the 30s, everybody grew up. If you were a baseball fan young, Ken Griffey was the guy. Bratton, how you doing, sir?
I'm good. Just glad to talk just the Cleveland series. We're not going to touch the Braves one today. And we need to get a Dontrelle Willis version of that Ken Griffey Jr. hat. I will pay whatever it costs.
I agree. And last but not least, the mustache himself, Spazzy. How you doing, sir?
Doing great, man. Very excited about this podcast. Not so excited about what's going on in Atlanta. But since we have Peter Pratt here, I thought it was very appropriate. Usually, Branton and myself will be having a drink while we're recording. Usually that drink is whiskey. Because Peter Pratt is on, I have a nice Pinot Noir here.
Oh, baby.
In honor of our guest. So I'm excited. Cheers to you all. Let's get it going.
All right. Well, we wanted to start it off with, of course, our guest, Peter. And we wanted to ask you a quick question. We know that you're out in the UK. We know that you're a big Marlins fan. But when I first heard about Locked On Marlins, and I heard that you were from the UK, I heard the accent, obviously, first. And I said, why the hell is this guy a Marlins fan? He could have chosen any team. How did you end up a Marlins fan?
That is so true, right? I could have chosen any team.
Any team.
All I had to do, it was simple. All I had to do, some research. Just
That's it.
Like, no one was telling me you have to follow the Marlins. There was no family connection, no nothing. I could have chosen.
It's like somebody
anything.
from here go ahead and just for some reason choosing Liverpool by choice. It makes no sense.
Yeah, for sure. And for those listening as well, they probably know I'm a Liverpool fan as well. But that wasn't a choice. That was like, I was born in Liverpool, and that was like, you are a Liverpool fan, and that's the point, right? That's how often fandom happens. But for baseball, it wasn't that. And my brother actually does live in the States. He's moved out there. He lives in St. Louis. So the first ever game I went to was at Busch, and it was absolutely glorious. I didn't know what the hell was going on, but didn't I feel a connection with the Cardinals? I don't know why. I was probably just too hungover. It was probably that. But next year we came back on holiday and went to Miami, and I was like, right, let's go to a baseball match is probably what I was calling it then, and let's go and see what what the Miami team's got to do. And it was a fun looking ballpark, and Stanton was on, hit a home run in that game, and I was like, I need to choose a team, and I think I'm just going to choose this team. Like, it feels right. Stanton hit that home run. I just went, I'm going straight to the store and just bought the jersey. Just thought, when you put $100 down on a team, that's the moment, right? You're in. Yep. You're all in at that point. So Stanton jersey was on, and then the rebuild kicked in like the next year, and I was like, oh man, now this was the wrong choice. But that was it.
No man, right?
No, but we're definitely glad that you're part of the fan base. I mean, for those, I guess we could just plug you now, right? Why even wait? I mean, for those of you that are listening, even though I doubt that you're listening, you haven't heard him yet. Locked On Marlins, Peter Pratt, every day, Monday through Friday, not on weekends. And we appreciate you, and we listen to all your content. You're the first podcast that I found for the Marlins. And then when I started looking for more, I realized that there aren't many out there. So we got together and we figured we could start something also, because the Marlins need some more support. We got to keep growing this, and hopefully they can keep going on the field.
Yeah, for sure. I'm with you on that. And this is a fun team right now. I feel like there's things for us to talk about and things to be excited about with this team for certain. And so we'll see how this year goes. But I don't see a 69 win team right now. But I mean, maybe that's wrong considering we're just getting absolutely blown out in Atlanta. But
that's a great transition, because
there you go.
Let's start talking Guardians. We record once a week, so we covered 2 series. So let's start with the fun stuff, right? The Guardians. We had the Guardians this past weekend, and for the most part, I thought the Guardians the Marlins against the Guardians looked pretty good. What did you think of the series? I know you covered it right in your podcast, but what did you think of the series against the Guardians?
Yeah, I knew it was going to be a tight series. I felt like it would be. Like, the Guardians, they kind of set up in a similar way to the Marlins, where it's like a lot of, not a lot of power in that lineup, like looking contact on base, base running, defense. And overall, the crucial bit, right, was winning both games in that doubleheader. Like, if ever you win both, it feels like a huge win. Almost feels like 3 wins, to be honest with you. It feels like you should just take the series automatically, where you win both in the doubleheader. But, for me, with those, pitches that were going, Sandy was skipped, and to win, without Sandy there, and, Smeltzer's starting, and then he's going on Twitter and liking everyone's slanderous tweets, which I thought was hilarious from Smeltzer.
Mine included, fun fact, but
even better. I didn't spot that, but that was my main takeaway. Really, was those Smeltzer engagements, which was fun. But I think the Guardians, they look similarly built to the Marlins. I think the Marlins, the bullpen has just been carrying this team. And I've never said that in my life as a Marlins fan. It's only 7-8 years, but the bullpen is absolutely carrying this team right now, which is a shocker. And what happens when this starting rotation comes back and the offense lights up? I mean, there's a club here somewhere, hopefully.
To start this season, I kept comparing this Marlins team to last year's Guardians. I felt like if we made the playoffs, we had to kind of take their blueprint. They've relied heavily on their pitching with very minimal hitting, and they made it to the playoffs. And everybody thought they had a chance to make it to the ALCS. Now, Callie, Guardians this past weekend, I know you were frustrated because we just can't seem to close out these sweeps. What did you think of this past weekend?
Yeah, it's an echo of a lot of what Peter just said. It was really playing after a postponement is tough, especially going from home to an away series and stuff like that. That first game is always tough because you kind of catch that jet lag and playing a game, getting on a plane, flying across the country, checking the hotel, getting to the ballpark. It's a lot. So I think maybe that first rain delay maybe even helped us. Obviously, it was concerning in losing that Sandy start, but it was for the best considering that he pitched pretty well yesterday against the Braves. But Smeltzer did great. I remember seeing his name come up, and I'll be the first one to say, like, I did not love that. But he did great. He did great. The pitching has carried us, and we hit really well considering against the Guardians. We saw a couple guys hit a couple dingers and couple timely hits and stuff like that. And that's all it takes, But of course, we had that Sunday game and we couldn't close, which seems to be the story of the season for us so far. Because it seems like for most series, we win the first 2, we lose the last one. So if we can, but you know what? If you were to tell me by the end of April we're winning we're winning more series than we're losing, I would have taken it. So,
for sure,
12-13, top of the sixth, down 4 against the Braves, on April 27th, I'm happy with that. So,
Brenton, I know that we spoke last time, and you said that you're not worried about Luzardo, you're not worried about Sandy, but is there any worry that 3 of the chances that we had to close out these sweeps have been when all those 2 have been on the mound, and we just are you at any point gonna get a little worried about how they're handling these games?
So Luzardo, I'm less worried about. Probably to start off, I'm not really worried about either of them. They're both top end rotation guys. They're gonna come back. The only thing that concerns me a little bit about Sandy is like at the end of his game yesterday, he looked really good. In that last inning, he started kind of doing the same thing that we talked about before in his previous starts, and the ball started floating up in the strike zone. And he couldn't get that slider down. For whatever reason, he just couldn't get it down anymore. And so that's when they started hitting him. And, I think that's a little cause for concern, but I think that's probably more him coming in a little bit rusty. And obviously something wasn't right physically with him. So, I think with what we saw in the beginning of that start, I think he's going to come back strong. Luzardo, I'm less worried about. I think he pitched all right against the Guardians. But, I really don't think there's a lot. There's no reason to panic yet. I mean, we're winning games, and we're winning games without our 2 starting, top of the rotation guys being there and being 100%. Cabrera's done pretty well considering, Garrett's held up all right, and Smeltzer. I mean, we all saw his name and we all were like, yep, this is it. We're going to get swept by the Guardians. And, he came through, and, that doubleheader, I can't say enough how exciting that win was. And, Peter, you said it best. I mean, it felt like 3 wins right there. And, I think that made all the difference in this road trip. And, seeing what's happening now, it makes it feel even better.
Well, one thing that we could take out of that series with the Guardians is that Luis Arias got injured, and he missed a bulk of this Braves series. Now, I know that a lot of people are saying that it's not a big deal that he got injured. He's playing already again. But my understanding, didn't he have knee issues before this? Or is this something that's brand new? Because my understanding is that he had knee issues when he was in Minnesota. Now, am I making this up, or?
It sounded like it, didn't it? When the trade went down, and a lot of the Twins fans were saying, we're sad to lose him. But one of the things, one of the knocks maybe was that, is the defense good, and are his knees going to hold up? But actually, the defense is holding up, and I don't think it's. I think that knee issue that we've seen was obviously a foul ball onto his knee, which is kind of just a bit of a freak situation. But he's dinged up, isn't he, Arias? Like, we've seen it. He started so hot this year. And he gets that, freak finger issue where he slices his finger on Realmuto's cleat, I think, if I recall. Then he's, fouling one off into his knee. We're not even out of April yet. And, our best hitter, he's struggling with his hand. He's struggling with his knee. That's not really a good sign. It just shows we need to be, cautious and careful with these guys. We just can't, just keep throwing them out there and expecting them just to keep playing through everything. So I think that's really crucial for how the Marlins manage their roster, really. And I was personally happy to see they gave him 3 days off. Like, if he's hurt, give him them 3 games. It was on the road in Atlanta. They're probably tough games to win anyway. And you think, you know what? There's a water win here. There's a season on the line, perhaps. And, maybe this series is one that we think, we're probably not going to win it anyway. So, but we'll see what happens to these knees. I was hearing arthritis in the knees, which for me was really concerning. And as a near 40-year-old male, I know what that feels like. Spaz feeling it too.
I had heard similar things about his knees, so that's why I brought that up. I wasn't sure if this is something that's recurring or it's just a freak accident, like you said. Now, I know we joked earlier when we spoke this week, Peter, about how we were hoping for a sweep against the Braves. Now, obviously, we were joking.
There was a sweep, to be fair. There was a sweep.
You're right.
It's not the one we wanted.
No.
So I guess I'll start with Spaz. Spaz, I know that we spoke last week and we said our hope is that we end this series or these two series 4-3, 3-4 at worst. Right now, we're looking at 2-5. Did you have hopes, or were you just kind of just shooting the wind there, just throwing numbers out there?
No, man. I thought legitimately we were coming in, looking that we were looking strong. We were looking decent, man. We were looking like a team that could dance around 500, which is what we've been saying all season. Dance around 500 and we'll figure it out. So I said 3-4. I thought I was, take 2-2. We could have had one. We let that slip away. We could have had the sweep in the Garden and let that slip away. But, it is what it is and move forward, But, yeah, I'm pretty bummed out that we're 2-5. I did not that was not in my cards at all. It is what it is.
Are you surprised at how this Braves series has gone?
No, I'm not at all. The Braves are the Braves, and they are they're a dangerous team, a dangerous ball club, and they actually love punishing the Marlins too, right? That's them boys. I think get juiced up when the Marlins are in town. Like they want to punish the Marlins. That's what I'm saying, right? There's that history. I think spurs them boys on, and they want to just punish the Marlins, and so I'm absolutely not stunned at this at all. I did think, 1 out of 4 would have been okay. And actually, really, if they'd have, if that eighth inning yesterday didn't happen, then you're probably walking out, 1 win out of 4, and you go, okay, let's move on to the next. And it's a tough assignment there. But I definitely wasn't stunned that there's a sweep probably about to happen.
Well, Callie, were you yesterday? I mean, I guess most of us aren't surprised that we lost the first 3, but are you surprised that Floro gave up that 8th inning the way he did? Because before this series, he's been lights out.
Yes and no. I mean, Floro's obviously been incredible all year, but you can't expect that to last, he was going to come back down to earth eventually, and it happened very, very much so against the Braves. The reason why it's not super surprising, it's because it's the Braves. That whole lineup 1 through 9 is just ridiculous. And like Peter touches, there's a lot of Marlins killers in that lineup. A lot of guys that just historically do really well against us. Albies is teed off against us all series. Acuna's, top 5 player in the league right now. Even Hillard has been having just like a stupid series against us. He's like 6 for 11 or something like that against us this week. It's tough, but this is who the Braves are. This is who they're going to be. They're going to have one of the better offenses. The pitching rotation's stupid. This was kind of the game to win for us because it's officially the kind of the back end. But it's unfortunate. But the someone's going to be the best team in the league, and the Braves might be it.
Peter, I last episode we were talking about the order in the lineup, and I know I'm in the minority. Everybody else said that I was crazy, but would you move Jazz out of the lead spot? Because the fact that he doesn't get on base as much as Arias, for example, leads me to want Arias to lead off. Now, I understand that Arias is playing very well where he's at, but do you think I'm off base by wanting him to lead off?
It's been a topic of discussion on Locked On, actually, and Sean Barrett, who's on there regularly with me, he feels the same as you, actually, where he feels that Jazz shouldn't be leading off. Like, his on-base skills aren't prototypical for a leadoff guy. And the numbers, I think, would point to that maybe Jazz isn't, and he isn't maybe a leadoff hitter, but he's probably the best leadoff hitter, or maybe that's the best spot for him currently in this Marlins order. I don't know. I like him there because for me personally, it frees up his base running skills. Like, that's when we saw him in the cleanup spot, it really, it connected with no stolen bases, no stolen base attempts, nothing. Like, when he's down in that heart of the order, I think it takes away part of his game, and the speed and the running is part of his game. There's a value add there. And I think whether it is 1 or 2, I still think towards the top of the lineup is the best spot for Jazz there. And a bit like the way the Braves go with Acuna, really, they're basically trying to recreate the Acuna situation and experience there, where you've got some power, some speed, you got everything, but really, ideally, you've got your best stick at the top of the order. I think that's your point, right? Do you get Arias right up there? But let's not forget really early in the season, the amount of runners being left on, like Arias was getting on base, but he was just stranded every time because no one could knock him in. And I think when they changed that around, like we did see Arias, I haven't seen a Marlin intentionally walk for like nearly 7 years. And next thing is Arias has got like 4 intentional walks in a week. And that just shows, right? Like with runners on, teams don't want to play with Arias, and they're just like, hey, take first base. We'll take on Avisel Garcia and Jesus Sanchez, and we'll take our chances. But I don't know. I'm a little bit on the fence about that question. But me personally, I've led towards like Jazz leading off, just so he can use his speed, really.
Like yesterday, for example, I remember Branton sent us a text when Jazz hit that home run. He said, I wish somebody would have been on base. And I replied, if he was batting third, there might have been somebody on base. So that's always been my argument. Branton, are you closer to coming my way, or are we still Jazz lead? No, okay.
No, I still think that our problem, I think, like Peter said, Jazz is our best alternative right now. There's really not anybody else we could put up there. I mean, maybe if you talk about when Weddle comes back, and I'm going to say it again, I've said it every episode, you bench Segura and you start Birdie, then maybe you can start playing around and move Jazz back and have like a Birdie or Weddle up top, move her eyes around. Then you can start experimenting, because then you've got a little more speed in the lineup. You can move Jazz back into the lineup and have a little more depth there. But that particular solo homer, like the bottom of the lineup didn't do anything beforehand. It wasn't like it was a leadoff homer. So, I think we have bigger problems, and thankfully Avi seems to be coming alive, but those home runs probably gave him, I don't know, Marlins probably signed him to a new extension. They love the man so much. And Soler kind of went quiet in this road trip. He had a good shot against Cleveland, and then kind of against the Braves, he's gone quiet. So hopefully afterwards he comes back. But I think our problems are more towards the bottom of the lineup than they are with Jazz. If Soler and Sanchez and Avi are all hitting, you're not asking if you want to move Jazz back, because he's going to get on base. What's he hitting? Like, he's hitting over 300, I think, right now, or close to it. So he's getting on base.
Jazz?
Yeah, what's he hitting now?
On base percentage is just average, because average is 217, I believe. On base percentage, I'd have to check. I know that Jazz is striking out 41% of the time.
Yeah, that's something that's concerning.
33% of the time. DLC De La Cruz is striking out 32.5% of the time. Avisel Garcia 34% of the time. Soler 26% of, like, we're striking out at a very high rate. So, and I understand, because last time we talked about this, I mean, Cali said that, and I understand that this is new baseball. Before, it used to be a big deal, but now we don't worry too much about the strikeouts. But man, that's a lot of striking out.
Yeah, but you have to this new brand of baseball and the way it's generated. There's going to be guys that strike out a lot. Like, that's just the way the game is generated now. Power pitching is
not our leadoff hitter.
Okay, but you have to think about how much the game's changed in terms of of pitching, and even Chipper Jones. I don't know if you guys heard on the stream the other day. He said when Snedgrove was pitching. Yeah, another Marlin killer. He even said what was the way Snedgrove's throwing. He's like, if I were hitting today, I'd only hit 200, because every single guy is throwing 95 plus. That's why strikeout numbers have skyrocketed, and why MLB has kind of had to change the rules that they did to generate offense, because the pitching has far surpassed the hitting. That being said, and I mentioned this on the other podcast, and I'll mention it now. Okay, Jazz leads the team in strikeouts. Okay. That's just the type of hitter he is. He's gonna hit, when he hits it, he's gonna square it up. He'll be, if he can live around 250, 260, would you be upset about the strikeouts? I don't think so.
No.
But he's gonna be on. He's an athlete. He gets on. He's gonna move. He's gonna get that extra base. He's gonna be extra aggressive. And again, if he's gonna be the guy striking out the most on the team, okay, let's say Arias gets on, Coop gets on. All right, would you rather him lead the team in strikeouts with guys on base, or would you rather him lead the team in strikeouts with no one on base? And for me, the answer every single time is I'd rather him strike out with no one on base than with guys on base. Now, again, it's a balancing act because who else is a leadoff on this team? Arise is the only other option.
That would be my guy, yeah.
Yeah, but again, okay, so Arise gets on, Jazz comes up, he's still leading the team in strikeouts. He's going to strike out a lot. We're going to run into the same issue. It's he's and again, the dichotomy, the duality of it is that not only is he going to lead, Jazz going to be one of the leaders in strikeouts, he's also probably going to be one of the leaders in home runs.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So it's like, luckily Skip's a guy that's not afraid to move it around a bit. But again, I would love to see the metric maybe, by the time end of May, June comes around, see where Jazz is hitting the best. Where's his OPS at the end of May? Where's his OPS at in the middle of June or the All-Star break or something like that? And then maybe we can find some more consistency as to where he stays in the lineup. But at this point, it's just a matter of who else. And with Arise being hurt, and out the series, who else bats first? Do you throw Birdie in there?
Peter, talk about 40 for 40 tracker.
Oh baby, that's been on fire actually this week. Like the 40-40 tracker going. Jazz is really he's got the long ball going at Atlanta, which is great. Maybe 40-40, it's a stretch target for him. But how do you boys feel? Like, do you think 40 home runs, like stolen bases for me? Like Jazz he can rattle them off easily. It's not the 40 stolen bases.
Especially with the changing in rules, he can get those 40 bases. The 40 homers is the one that's going to be a little more difficult.
I think he can do it. I think. I mean, obviously 40 is a big ask from a guy like Jazz, but I think 40's. I think if anyone on this team is going to hit 40, it's going to be Jazz. Let me say that.
Or Solar.
Solar. Yeah, I'd be really happy if Solar finishes the year, honestly, with like high 20s, low 30s. Because again, Solar's going to be a big strikeout guy. Solar's an all or nothing guy. He's going to hit the ball 500 feet, or he's going to strike out or roll over the shortstop. Those are the two things we're going to see.
If we get Jazz,
what do you think?
If we get Jazz healthy all year long, I think we're just going to be popping champagne with Peter at the 40 to 40 mark. I think it happens, man.
Let's go.
If we get a healthy Jazz, if no injuries, nothing happens, I think it happens, dude. And Peter called it from the beginning, so I love it.
Well,
it'd be amazing.
We're in the end of April, so he has 5 bombs already, which is great, and 91 at bats, which is if you're gonna hit 40, you're kind of on the right track.
I'll give you right now what he's on track for. Just give me a sec to get my math on.
7 stolen bags. He can definitely get to 40.
Yeah.
I have no doubt. About that. So while I do this, Avisail Garcia, Peter, everybody's ready to send them down, and all of a sudden, a couple games, and everybody's like, "Oh, well, maybe he's finally getting it together." I'm not convinced. You need to give me a lot more than 1 or 2 series. What are you thinking, Peter?
I must say that was elite hosting. Then we went from Jazz Chisholm 40-40 tracker to Avisail Garcia. It was stunning transition. Avisail Garcia, it's a tough one, right? It hasn't felt right since the start with Avisail Garcia and the Marlins. Like something's just been off. He came in heavy. He looks disconnected in general. He's obviously frustrated with his performance, but the Marlins need him to be productive. Like, they're not the type of ball club that are just going to eat $35 million. Like, they're not. And so they just need to find a way to unlock something in Avi. And if it is this minor tweak in some wider batting stance, if that is the golden nugget that Avisail Garcia needs. And, well, listen, we've had 2 home runs this week, so maybe it is. Maybe he's found something and he's going to go on a tear. But the Marlins need him to find something and be, a 1-2 WAR player. And that's fine. Because his defense in right field is actually pretty tidy. Like when the ball's out there in right field towards Avi, I think, yeah, Avi's got this. Anywhere else in the outfield, I'm concerned about. But, defensively, he's fine. It's just, is this real? That's the question you're asking, right? Is it 2 home runs this week? Is this real? Are we seeing skinny, odd year Avi? Is it finally happening?
Look, everybody was talking on Twitter about sending him down. And
it's DFA or nothing, right? There's no trade option. So that's the point. Are they going to eat 35 mil, the Marlins? Like,
no, not the Marlins.
I don't think so.
They're going to milk him for everything they can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So are you on the Avi train, Brenton?
No, I hope so. Listen, when you invest that type of money as the Marlins, like you hope that the guy works out, and it would be better for us if he works out than if he doesn't. So, he's putting in defensive work, which is important, especially with Jazz making the transition to the outfield. And while Jazz has looked really good lately, we did have our concerns to start the season. So, it's good to have somebody we can depend on there. If his back can come alive, I think that solves a lot of problems for us. But, I think it's a lot of wishes and dreams with Avi. So, and that's all we have to hold on to. Like they're never going to not play him, right? Because
because he's getting paid the money.
So
yeah, hopefully he turns it.
If I told you that Avi Garcia for his career has more hits than strikeouts, would you believe me?
No.
Oh, he
but
does.
I know it's true.
Oh my days.
Yeah.
Unbelievable stat that is.
So let me frame Avi like this, because Avi's been a disaster class with the Marlins since he's got here, right? But his 162 game average, would you take this? 264 batting average.
I'm already sold.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm already sold.
736 OPS. Was it 21 bombs and 153 strikeouts? Would you take that?
Of course. Who wouldn't?
That's his average. That's what the Marlins paid him for. That's what he's done on
average every season.
Yeah, and the thing is, you look at some of Avi's some of the years he had with the White Sox specifically, and then the year he had with the Rays, and it's easy to fall in love with that. And the last year before he signed with us in 2021 with the Brewers, he hit 262 on OPS of 820, 29 bombs, 86 RBI, and he struck out 121 times. And then we paid him what was it? 3 years, 56 million front loaded type of contract type of thing, or back loaded type of contract. And, he's kind of gone past his prime, unfortunately, I think a little bit. And, we're seeing the results, but I think everyone's holding on to the fact that we see Brewers and White Sox Avi again, and unfortunately in the, when the 1 year and change that we've had him, it hasn't felt right. And he hasn't produced with us. Last year he hit 224. This year he's hitting $169. He's striking out a ton,
well, hopefully it was just a rough April.
Yeah.
Season.
So
hopefully let's forget about
he's going to play. And he's gonna play. He's what, the second or third highest paid guy in the team. He's gonna play.
Yeah.
It's not like they're gonna bench him. So we have to get used to.
He'll get the at bats to turn it around or not. So we'll see.
Peter, there was some people talking about how we can maybe flip Avi for Osuna. Would you want to see Marcell Osuna back on the team? Like, we had this conversation last week, but I'm kind of curious as to what you have to say about this.
I'm not sure that's the right approach either. To be honest. So, the thing is with Avi, just kind of like rounding that off there, like if he can get anywhere near to his career average numbers there that we just went through, like anywhere just touching that, you then look at it and think, let's say he plays most of the year in Miami. He's then got 2 years remaining and like 25 million left. Okay. That kind of production, I think then becomes tradable at 2 years, 25 mil. Like, where someone would say, actually, yeah, we take that, because, the way these kind of baseball contracts have risen in the last couple of years, like you're seeing like a real growth in some of these contract values. So, for a 2-WAR guy, hitting 20 bombs, like they're probably getting more than 12 million a year right now, I'd say. And so if he can rebound a touch, like there could be a situation where you could move Avi without having to take an absolute dud back in terms of like a dud contract and a dud player. And maybe there's they could move him for like a low level, no name, player to be named later kind of situation. But I think the Ozuna situation is something they should probably avoid.
I think we all agree on that one.
Yeah. I think his time is running out rapidly in Atlanta. And actually, I think they will eat that money. I think the Bravos will actually end up pulling the trigger on that and just ending that relationship, moving on. They've won so many other contracts, Atlanta, and so there's no need to look at every single contract. They just have to look at it and go, hey, well, we've got all these other players on amazing deals. We're going to have to eat this one and move on. It is what it is. But overall, the way they run their ball club and their contracts, it's second to none, to be honest with you, the way they operate. And, there's the odd loss in there, but overall, they're big fat dubs all over the show with Atlanta and their contracts.
Zuno was getting booed last night, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's rough. Now, I wanted to touch real quick, Spaz. You have Spaz called the Marlins the Michael Jordans of leaving runners on base. And when I went and I double-checked, we're not the worst in the league. I mean, we're 18th, so it's not great. We're leaving about 6.5 runners on base per game, but we're 18th. I thought we would be a lot worse. Now, I will tell you, we are the worst in average in the National League, worst in the entire major leagues. So we obviously are having issues with our offense. But I wanted to jump back real quick to the Jazz. He's on pace for 32 homers and 45 stolen bases.
Let's do it,
so,
baby.
All right.
Obviously, if he picks up the home run thing, he can get there. 32 is not that far off if you can get on a hot little streak a week or two. So we got a chance. I'm all with that tracker. I'm with you there, Peter.
There you go. Let's do it.
Our offense
Let's go.
is struggling for sure. But what we thought that was going to be our strength, our rotation suffering with injuries and just lackluster performances. Peter, what do you think? Because I thought George Soriano was going to get a bigger role when people started going down with injuries. But that doesn't seem to be the case. What do you think of our rotation now with all the recent injuries?
Man, I was looking at it last week and comparing the opening day rotation. I was thinking back how this rotation looked good. I was looking at this week's rotation, and that was before the Sandy news dropped in that like he was skipping a start. We didn't know how serious it was. And I was looking at it going, okay, we've now got Luzardo, Cabrera, Brian Hoeing, Smeltzer, and Braxton Garrett. All of a sudden the rotation, the strength, it isn't the strength. And even the guys, what we expect to be the strength, they haven't started the year hot themselves. So that's the point. The bullpen has had to carry the rotation. And they've done that well. But as we're starting to see now, the cracks start to appear. Those really close games, the little like maybe kind of lucky wins that you see, those really tight ones, they're starting to go the other way a touch now this last week or so. And that's the concern, isn't it, guys, where you ask more and more from the pen and you're going to get less and less overall. That's going to be the problem. And, it's tough. They need to get some length out of this rotation. Fundamentally, that is the main priority, is we need length out of the rotation. And we're starting to see the cracks in the defense too, and that's the problem too. Then the defense falls down, the rotation starts to fall down, the bullpen falls down. It's all connected, right? And that's the problem. The flaws that we knew about will maybe start to rear their heads, and we'll start to see some L's off the back of that. And that's the concern. But the main takeaway for me is Sandy wasn't hurt. It wasn't anything majorly serious. That was a big win. Because when I saw that news drop, I thought, oh boy, here we go. This is season over situation. Trevor Rogers the same. I'm really intrigued though, guys. I'm interested to get your take, really, how, for me, Braxton Garrett has pitched himself back into the rotation. I was surprised how they managed him anyway, putting him in the pen. Didn't make a ton of sense. For me, Braxy's put his best foot forward. If Cueto and Rogers are back, who's going to be the odd man out? That's the question I've got now. Like, if they don't go 6-man, who's going to give? Because for me, Braxy's in. So it's, what do you do with Trevor Rogers? What do you do with Cueto? I don't know. There's some decisions to make there.
What do you think, Brandon?
So I think, I would guess my rotation when all healthy would be Sandy, Luzardo, Cabrera, Garrett, and Rogers. That would be my 5 go-to. Cueto, we took a flyer on him. Let him be a long reliever. If he doesn't want to do that, peace out, man. I think we got to give it to our own guys. We didn't really get to see a whole lot of Rogers before he went down with his injury, but what we did see looked all right. But absolutely, I think Garrett has 100% earned his spot in the rotation. And, I think he's probably outperforming Cabrera as well. Like, I think stat-wise and what we've seen from him, he's definitely like the number 3 man in the rotation at this point. Will he stay there the whole season? Who knows? Because I have high hopes for Cabrera rebounding and having a good rest of the season. But to kind of touch back on the bullpen issues, I think our bullpen got beat up real bad in the Cleveland series. They got used a lot. We had that one game where it was just basically the Smeltzer game was just the bullpen really pitching the whole game. And so if we can get Sandy, hopefully to start going, 7 innings again, Luzardo, we need him. Luzardo tomorrow, even if he gets lit up, I think he's got to go 7 to give these guys a break especially after today going back to the pin because of the rain delay. So, I think we're probably going to have to take some pain with the rotation to just get some guys some rest because, the bullpen was number 1 in baseball before we hit this road trip, and now they're not there anymore. And I think a lot of it is just fatigue. It's these guys getting overused so early in the season. And so, maybe that's where the odd man out in the rotation helps out in the bullpen. We get another long reliever. And I think that's really probably what we need right now is another guy who can go long. I know Danny loves Soriano, so hopefully, he gets a shot. I'd rather him get a shot than Cueto, honestly.
I agree. I don't want to see Cueto out there. Honestly, when we got him, I honestly was surprised that he was still in the league. Like, what is this guy still doing around here? So I'm all for Soriano over Cueto.
I think with my take is that Garrett's been the most consistent pitcher in our rotation so far this year. So I very much agree that Garrett can't lose his spot. Now, I mean the easy answer is that Cueto I think is the odd man out. As we've seen, Cueto, he's not the Cueto from 5, 6, 7 years ago, and we've seen his whiff rates drop, consistently the last couple of years, and then it plummeted from 2021 to 2022. And we saw when he came in the short start he had with us that he was getting hit hard again. And with a guy that's never really thrown hard, that kind of leaves the ball up, that you can't leave the ball up because you're gonna get teed off on. We kind of saw the results of that.
So I just looked up Cueto's salary. You don't even want to know.
I don't say it because it's just gonna make me angry. But with in terms of long options, there's a couple other things we need to consider. We have a guy like Max Meyer who's slated to come back hopefully before the All-Star break, and he's another guy that it would be a good problem for Skip to have a guy like Max Meyer kind of knocking on the door too, because we've seen when he's been up, and even his numbers in Double and Triple A have been fantastic when he's pitched, and he's a guy that the club is really high on, first round pick out of Minnesota. And that's another guy that when he's healthy and ready to go, he's gonna start taking some jobs from someone. It's a good problem to have too many starting options. Now, if everyone's healthy, it's going to be a good problem for Skip. But death taxes and pitchers not lasting the entire season, right? So someone's going to get hurt, someone's going to miss a start or two, and where those guys are going to have to flip in and out. I think Max Meyer would be a guy to look on, down the road. I know he only started throwing like 90 feet like a month ago or so, like right before the season started. So he's probably, based on throwing programs, he's probably not even going to be back till the 6-month mark. But he's a name that I would definitely keep an eye on moving forward.
He's going to be good.
Peter, do you believe in Cabrera?
I do. I just recorded an episode of Locked On just before this one, guys, and one of the key things I was talking about in that was I think Cabrera is just about ready for a massive breakout game. I can see that happening in the next game or two. Like, it was obviously a slow start for him. The walks was just a weird situation, just had no command. And then he just couldn't find or piece all of his pitches together in a single start. One day the changeup's not there, next day the fastball's not there, and he's just struggled to piece it together. But in his most recent start, I think for 3 innings, we saw Edward Cabrera that we fell in love with, perhaps. And I think there's a big, massive breakout kind of game coming from Edward Cabrera in the near term. Could be this weekend against the Cubs. I mean, Cubs are pretty hot right now themselves. So, but it would be amazing. And actually, it'd be so timely. We're just talking about it, right? Can we get Eddie going 7 or 8 with double-digit Ks, something like that, something juicy just to get us all back on the Cabrera hype train? But I do, to answer the question, I like him. And there's a lot of what we saw with Sandy right there. There's if Eddie wants it and he puts the work in, there's that, that is there for him for the taking, and he's around Mel, he's around Sandy. He's got the perfect environment to learn and improve. If he wants it, I think he could do it. So I'm high on him. I've always been high on him. He always pitches well. When he's got the dreadlocks flowing out too, it's always about the hairstyles, look good, pitch good. It's all about
look good, you feel good.
Exactly. So let's see what hairstyle. It's the man bun. It's the bun that he never performs well with the bun. So no more of the buns, please.
So Spaz, things have gotten, I don't want to say off the rails over the last week, but they're not going exactly how we would have wanted by the time that we recorded this episode. But the fact that we've won every series that isn't the Mets or the Braves, does that give you some optimism moving forward? Because our two aces haven't necessarily performed great, and we're winning series, just not against World Series contenders, which we aren't in that class. So how are you feeling about the season so far, Spaz?
I'm all right with it, man. I mean, like everyone has said, the Braves are the Braves, and they're a fucking strong team. Peter said, I mean, the way they are managed and the way they operate as a club, I mean, it's like second to none. Again, a strong team. And the Mets, again, similar shit. Like, they are the Mets, and they have, and I hate seeing Starling Marte out there. I wanted to keep him so much, man. Like, every time he comes to town, I yell at him, and not in a bad way. I miss him. I mean, extraño Marte. I tell him I love him. So yeah, I mean, I think we're all right, man. We're gonna be okay. Those are two very, very tough clubs to beat, and they're the only ones that we've lost series to. So it is what it is. I'm excited. I'm okay with it.
All right, Peter. If there was one thing that you could change on this team moving forward, what would it be?
Oh boy, that is a tough question. But for me, the thing that jumps out most, and it's what I can see right in front of me here as well, guys, the one thing I would change is bring back the pinstripes and the teal. That for me, it's what I would do. It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. Glenn Geffner, actually, if you guys aren't subscribed to his content, go and check it out. He had a really interesting article out there today, and it was fan questions, and he was digging into that. And one of them was around the uniforms and the jerseys. And I think Glenn was saying the same. Like, it's a no-brainer. Like, the club, this type of topic is a type of topic you listen to the fans on. Because fundamentally, they want the fans buying the jerseys. So I don't know why the Marlins have decided to leave it this long and why they haven't made the change. Like, it's a club that struggles commercially. And the fan base is telling you and has told you for years and years, we want the pinstripes, we want the teal. Make it happen. And they'll sell because they look amazing. So that's, for me, the change I'd make.
Real quick, Callie, before I go on to you, I did have one thing. Now that you brought that up about the merchandise, I went to the game, the last Friday home game. I forgot. Slipped my mind who we played. I think it was the Diamondbacks.
It was Diamondbacks. We were there together.
And
man.
I went. Yeah, I know. We were there together. I know. I went to every single team shop in that stadium. They didn't have one teal hat that fit me. Were they all sold out? Maybe. I didn't see that many teal hats in the stadium. How are you not producing enough to sell? And then when I went online to look for it, you don't have it on the team shop. Like, this is, I agree with you. The teal and black, great. I love it. Sell it. Like, we want to buy it. Sell it. It's not on the team shop. Maybe they want me to go to the team store to buy it. I tried. You don't got it there either. What are you doing? And then one more thing. We're in 2023. I understand we're celebrating 30 years of Marlins history and blah, blah, blah. Why are we not celebrating 20 years since they won their second championship? I haven't heard a peep about it being the 20th anniversary. Like, if I didn't know that, who would say that? Peter, I mean, I know that you started following the team 6-8 years ago, whatnot, but have you heard anybody bring up the fact that it's been 20 years since they won that championship?
Nothing. Nobody's
celebrating that. It's strictly about the 30. How are they not taking the opportunity to also promote this? Like, they have they have an event just about it. Take your dog to the park, bark in the park and whatnot, and all this other crap. Can we have a 20th anniversary of a World Series title? Not many teams have those. Can we celebrate it? It makes no sense to me. They're dropping the ball right now. I'm sorry, that rant over. Go ahead, Callie. What were you going to say?
You know what I love about you, Danny, is when you get really excited, that New York accent really shines, man. It's beautiful. But I have a sort of conspiracy theory that the Marlins are starting to do all this, and it coincides well with the 30th anniversary of the club opening. Like every Friday is that Teal Friday and stuff like that, because I think the Marlins are poised to do what, you know, the Astros did, what the Padres did, what a lot of these clubs did, is that they brought back those old colors and they stuck around. Like, so you look at the Padres, you know, before even the Tony Gwynn, like blue and orange, they had the golden brown. The Astros had that orange and yellow and navy blue. Then they transitioned out of that to that kind of like crimson and black and gold era. And then they kind of found their way back to, you know, the Padres went through a bunch of different rebrands until they found their way back. The Blue Jays are back now that they're back to those powder blues and the bird on the hat. Yeah. And the Orioles have the bird on the hat again. So we're seeing all these teams kind of revert back to really what worked. And I think the Marlins are kind of setting themselves up to do the same, because I think they see that the fans want it. They can't. I know the organization is inept in how it runs, but they can't see how, like, I've been to, I don't know, 4 or 5 Marlins games already this year. You know, I'm going again next week. And everyone's wearing the black and teal. Like, all the fans that you know have been there a long time. You see the beat up old, you know, black and teal hats. You see, you know, the Gary Sheffield, the Dontrelle Willis, the Cody Ross shirts. You're seeing all those all around. Like, I think the club is kind of like throwing some feelers out there. We see the Marlins Museum now, and they have everything kind of set up the way it does. They're starting to tap into the nostalgia, and I think that's them maybe throwing the feelers out to see, like, okay, is this something that the fans really want? And I think eventually we kind of go back to that. Like, is it going to be the white with the black pinstripes and the fish and the F? I hope so. Like, if we can go back to being the Florida Marlins, that would be fantastic. But I think that's my conspiracy theory. I think we start to I think they're following the trend of a lot of these clubs, because before the Marlins were the Marlins in terms of attendance and all this stuff, there were the Padres were just as bad. Blue Jays were just as bad. You know, remember when the Astros were the Lastros? Like, you know, sometimes they do those rebrands and it kind of brings people back. So let's see what happens.
Well, maybe I'm in the minority. I don't hate the new colors. So I like the new colors. I think they're nice. And give me just the silhouette. I don't need the M. I think this is good. But I'm with you. I love the teal. And just for the record, the Florida Marlins are the only undefeated team still in major leagues. So there you go. And you know, we have the best winning percentage in playoff history of any team in the 4 major leagues. So just putting that out there also. Anyway, I know it's getting late for you, Peter. So we're going to start wrapping this up. But at the end of every show, we like to put our predictions out for the next 2 series, right? Kind of judge more or less where we're going to be. Now, I know that this record down on the bottom of the graphic says 12-13. I stopped keeping up with the game, but I'm pretty sure it's 12-14 by now, or about to be 12-14. So we're about 2 games on the 500. Yeah, 2 games on the 500, possibly 4th in the East if Philly wins today. So
they did.
There you go. So we're about to be 4th in the East. How do you see the next 2 weeks going? Maybe give me a record prediction with this Cubs series at home, and then another visit from the Braves.
Am I on deck first?
Yeah. You know what? Let's take the pressure off. Let's put Spazzy on there first.
No,
I want to put all the pressure on you.
All right, so we get the Cubs first, right?
Yep, at home. So you know, on Friday we're winning because it's the Florida Marlins playing.
Right. Fine. Perfect. I don't like playing the Cubs because, man, that park gets fucking full of Cubbies. It is the absolute worst. I don't know. Like, besides New York, I guess there's just a lot of Chicago people here because it's fucking Cubs as far as I can see, and I hate it. I think we take, with that being said, I think we definitely win Friday because Teal Friday, Throwback Fridays. That's a W. Right? And I think we're undefeated on Teal Fridays, right?
In the one Teal Friday we
Florida
played,
Marlins.
yes.
Okay, yeah.
Two.
Yeah, you're right.
We've been to both of them, Callie. Come on now.
You're right. My bad.
So we take 2 out of that, and then after that we play
the Braves for 3.
The Braves again. Fuck.
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna say we got some of that home field advantage. So I say 2, and it's a 3-game series or 4-game series.
3
game.
3.
You got Monday off.
2 and 2. I get 2 series wins, man. Let's fucking do it.
Oh,
Yeah. Let's
4
go.
and 2.
Let's go, Peter.
Okay, 4 and 2. Bratton, what are you thinking?
I'm a little less optimistic. I think we can take 2 from the Cubbies. I think that's realistic. Seeing how the Braves have beaten us up, I think we probably and we don't have projected pitchers for that because our rotation's kind of out of whack. So it kind of depends on that. But I think we take 1 from the Braves. Depending on who's pitching, if we can get Sandy and Luzardo, or maybe Luzardo Cabrera in there, we might be able to take 2, but I'm gonna say we take 3 in this next 2 series.
Cali, what are you thinking, sir?
All right, so tomorrow against the Cubbies, we have Luzardo in the bump, who's thrown well for all intents and purposes, and we're facing Stroman. Stroman, not a guy that's going to light up the radar gun, but
Stroman sucks.
He has an arsenal of pitches, and he spots it pretty well. That being said, he's very much feast or famine as a pitcher. He's had his hot start, 2.17 ERA. He is 2-2 on the year, but in a very hitter friendly. His home field is a very hitter friendly place. Not so much a hitter friendly place when he comes down to Miami. Then we have Cabrera on the bump against a TBD from Chicago, and then on Saturday on Sunday we have Honig up against Steele, who is 4-0 with a 1.39 ERA.
Yeah.
All right. That being said,
that's the one we lose. That's the one.
If we win the first 2, we're losing Sunday, right? That's a foregone conclusion. I think for that being said, the whole series, I don't know how it happens. I don't know which ones we win, which ones we lose. I think we break even 500, 3-3. We'll win one of them because we're pretty decent at home. But that's my prediction. 3-3 on our next homestand.
I'm with you. I think we take 2 from the Cubs. I think we take 1 from the Braves. Sandy pitches on Tuesday. I got to keep my hopes in Sandy. I don't know. I just refuse to let that go. So 3-3, and hopefully the bullpen can go in and save that game, because I'm sure it'll be a tight game. We're still undefeated in 1-run games, by the way. Peter, what do you think?
I'm feeling optimistic, actually, guys. It might be the wine's kicked in or something. I don't know, but I'm with you, boys. I was looking at this Cubs series and thinking, right, UK friendly Sunday, we can write that off. The Marlins are going to win the first 2, and they're going to blow the sweep because that's just how they roll.
Those are the Marlins.
Yeah,
that's it. That's just the method. But we win the series, so that's good. We'll win that series. We're then going to give the Bravos a taste of their own medicine, and it's going to be a sweep for the Marlins against the Bravos.
Oh,
yes, sir.
This one's getting clipped.
Let's go.
This right here.
This is a clip right here.
Let's go. Sandy,
I love that.
Sandy, Braxton Garrett, Jesus Luzardo. That's your 3 arms, and they're going to absolutely demolish the Bravos and sweep them back. So it's going to be just back in your face. I know that's 4-3 for the Braves on the year, but I think it's going to be a sweep, and it just catapults the Marlins forward. It's what they need in the start of May. The schedule really softens up, in theory.
Well, that's what I was going to get into right now. But I will tell you that before this Braves series, what I didn't like was the fact that they had just gotten swept by the Astros. So I felt like all signs point like they're not going to get swept by us. They're not even going to lose this series. Like, they're going to win most of them because they're not going to get swept by the Astros and then come out with a dud at home. So that's why I started feeling pretty bad about this series. But like you said, after the Braves next week, we have the Cubs again for 3 in Chicago. Then we have the Diamondbacks for 3 in Arizona. Then we have the Reds, the Nationals, the Giants, the Rockies. We finally start getting some reprieve, right? It finally starts to soften up because we had, I think it was the 8th hardest schedule in the month of April. So the fact that we had the 8th hardest schedule, we're only 2 games under 500 at the end of April almost. I think that we're pretty good. And I've been saying, I think what most of us have been saying, 86 wins is the goal. 86 got Philly to the World Series last year. So 86 is the goal. Hover around 500 and then make a small little push in September. And you never know what happens once you get in there, especially if you're the Marlins.
That's what history tells you, right? So for certain, I mean, I think that's generally the vibe everyone has, right? It's like just hovering around 500. Can you make a move or two? Can you add a couple of like? There's clearly a need for a few more sticks. Like it's pretty obvious, and the Jesus Sanchez situation it's on thin ice there. But really, they have no other options at this point. The left-handed, power stick. But they'll be seeking to add. If they're in the hunt, they can seek to add. I think that Jock Peterson one is really interesting for certain. Yeah. I think a lot of people will be thinking the same though, and so actually that Jock Peterson situation becomes quite competitive, and they end up clubs end up with a bit of an overpay to make that happen if there's like a real need. But the Marlins do have a real need. But yeah, it's going to be that's the goal, right? Just stay competitive, stay relevant, stay in contention, and then it's up to Kim. And this is contract year Kim, and so I think contract year Kim, if they're in the hunt, we're going to see the best of Kim Hank. We're going to see it. She has to. Job's on the line. She's going to be making some moves.
For sure. So, again, we'll leave it here. But just real quick, Peter, final prediction for the season, just in case we don't have you on in some time.
For the season, baby. Well, I mean, I've just said we're going to sweep the Braves after being swept by the Braves. So I think I've got the Marlins down at like 97 wins, I think, at one point. I maybe wasn't quite that high. I down, like, for me, if they're 500 or above, like I feel like that's probably a dub for the Fish overall, considering the seasons we've come off. I think I had them in the kind of high-ish 80s as a best case. The broad thing with this team, though, for me, is the variance. The number and the variance in the number is so high. Like, it's one of the highest variance teams. I could see 65 wins and I could see 95, legitimately. This team could go one of many, many different ways. And I just hope it's one of the positive ones, to be honest with you.
For sure. They've only won more than 90 games once in their history, so it'd be nice to hit that again. But like again, 500, give it to 86, and let's see what happens in the postseason. So, Peter, where can everybody find you that's listening?
Yeah, for sure, guys. I'm mainly a Twitter guy, so follow me on Twitter at Miami Marlins _UK. And also, you already called it out as well. Locked On Marlins is my own pod. Well, it's Locked On's pod, but I'm hosting it. 5 episodes a week there on Locked On, so head over to there. Equally as well to you guys, there's always guest spots required, so please come and join me on Locked On as well. We can get on. Spaz already got his hand up. He knows he's coming on.
Just one quick thing, because somebody wrote to you on Twitter, and I thought it was hilarious. We miss you running out of your house, like yelling, and I think, did Tara put a stop to that?
Well, what I'll say is, where I live, I've got neighbors both sides and then neighbors behind. In the last year, all of those 3 houses have been sold. So all neighbors have moved.
Driving them out.
Okay. All right.
They obviously weren't Adam Duvall fans. That must have been the problem. Running out there. Here's my pledge to everyone that's listening. And you're right. I love those clips. And now it starts to get warm in the UK, and the grass is nice. Yeah. Those clips are going to be back.
Let's go, baby.
There you go.
This Jazz 4040 tracker is going to be brought to life on the grass, no doubt.
I love it.
All right.
Well, thank you again for joining us. Thank you, all the Batter fans, for listening, and Spaz, Brian, Callie. As always, me, Daniel, we appreciate you guys listening all the way to the end. We'll be back next Thursday covering, I guess, a sweep of the Braves at home, like Peter Pratt predicted. So we're looking forward to that. It's going to be a fun episode. And until then, we'll have a great week and enjoy this home series. See you next week.